Yes, hello, welcome everybody. It's Chris here from MoDXtra, and I'm back again today with the third instalment of my nostalgic look back at 90s gimmick comic book covers. I've already done my Superman titles, I've done my X-Men titles, and now in this installment I'm going to take a look at some Batman titles and a few other sort of ancillary DC Comics issues that I picked up around that time. Just some randomers, basically. I was, to put it into context, I was a young teenager at this point, and I was just doing my Saturday job, doing my paper round, earning a bit of pocket money, and then heading straight on down to newsagents and comic book stores and blasting all my hard-earned cash on comic books. And I was exactly the type of demographic that the comic book publishers DC and Marvel were targeting, who would just happily fork over an extra couple of quid for a shiny, exciting one, because I thought I was going to become a really amazing comic book collector with sitting on a retirement fortune, which simply has not turned out to be the case. And even if it did turn out to be the case, I didn't look after my comics well enough at 13 years old to make them be worth anything. So there you go. So join me now as I do a little bit of show and tell. Hello. A little bit of show and tell of some. I've got some embossed covers, I've got some foil covers, I've got some hologram covers, and I've got a really interesting novelty one, a 3D lenticular cover to show you today from my DC comic box collection. Okay, let's crack on with it then, shall we? Okay then, so I've got a couple of books here all piled up, ready to go, that I've taken out my long boxes. Here's a few there. I'm going to start with some of the Batman titles that I was collecting at the time, because these illustrate one of the kind of key elements of what the publishers were doing with these kind of novelty gimmick comic book covers. So they were marking first issues, landmark occasions, milestone issue numbers, etc., etc. And at the time, I was collecting a lot of the Knightfall and Knightquest Batman story arc stuff. In fact, I've got here the famous, iconic Batman issue 497, Knightfall Part 11, which was the very moment, spoiler alert if you're not aware, but the very moment in which the famous scene where Bane breaks the Batman's back, Bruce Wayne's Batman, I should say, should choose my words more carefully there. And this one was marked with this weird, I don't know what you call this actually, I should have Googled it before, like this weird little card flippy thing. It's yeah, I don't know what you call that. This little card flippy thing, but it was to obviously mark the occasion out and make it stand out as a significant issue. Maybe because it was a random issue number 497. I don't know. Maybe there's someone from DC out there watching my videos who could enlighten us in the comments, because obviously the entire publishing company rushes straight to watch my vids. So yeah, this was the breaking of the bat. As you can see, I mentioned before, I didn't look after my comic books very well. You can see all kind of where I've folded over the corners, and I've read it over and over and over again. A tremendous storyline, one of my absolute favourites, the Knightfall Knightquest storyline. As a Batman fan, I just love the whole idea of Bane kind of determined to break the bat, and so puts him through this gauntlet of fighting all of his rogues gallery as Bane breaks him out of Arkham Asylum and makes Batman face up against them one after the other, weakening him psychologically and physically to the point where Batman can get the better of him. Where Bane can get the better of Batman at this point here in issue 497. So subsequent to Bane breaking Batman's back, we have a character called Azrael who takes over the Batman mantle. Jean-Paul Valley, who steps in. Batman goes away to recuperate, both in terms of body, because he's broken his spine, and in terms of mind and his emotional health, and so I think he goes to a Caribbean island or something, if memory serves me right. I've not I should have reread them. I say this every video. I should have reread these before I actually started chunnering on about it. But here is Batman issue 500. So an example of a landmark, milestone number in the run, but also significant. They timed this really well. Also significant because it's a kind of accumulation, a key moment in that Knightfall Knightquest storyline. A great example of just making it stand out on the comic book shelf, but also to encourage a purchase, because what they've done is they've put this like kind of gatefold card piece with the traditional Bruce Wayne Batman costume on the front, but you'd have to buy it and then take it out of the card and the bag. The comic book shops often would put them in order to then open up this card and reveal the new, modern, aggressive combat ready Jean-Paul Valley Azrael version of the Batman there, which is really clever. I also like the way the inside of the card there, if I just position that in the camera, has got this kind of continuous image here with the cape, and you've got Bane and Tim Drake's Robin here. And this is a significant issue because this is the one where the Azrael Batman finally comes to a head, fighting Bane, finally faces off against Bane and defeats him, which is important because that then means in Azrael's mind he's not only taken on the Batmantle, but he surpassed Bruce Wayne's Batmantle. But it's also the point where Tim Drake starts to get a little bit concerned and express a little bit of concern about the methods of Azrael and how his more violent, more combative, aggressive approach to fighting crime and vigilante justice comes through. Also, you'll see here it's got these little postcards. I've obviously not removed them from the issue, but it came with this little kind of special postcard thing. I think there's one in the front cover there. Yeah, so you've got Bruce Wayne's Batman and Azrael's Batman. So a super example of a novelty gimmicky 90s comic book title, because it's got everything really. It's a milestone issue, it's a landmark event in a big crossover storyline. It's got the foil embossed cover on it. Actually, I'll just stay on that a little bit longer and just sort of wave it under this lamp so you can get the benefit of the shiny goodness. So yeah, an excellent example of these novelty comic book covers that were being ploughed out in the Wild West of the 90s comic book industry. Okay. And then finally, just sort of in the same ballpark here, we've got another foil embossed cover here. This is Knightquest, The Crusade. So the Knightquest storylines kind of followed Azrael's Batman. You can see, again, his more aggressive, more combative style. And under the light there, you can see the foil embossment with the kind of shiny blues and golds and silvers in there. It's a 25 issue point, 675, and it's just kind of marking the Azrael's Batman's kind of adventures. He's becoming more solitary. He's cutting out the other members of the Bat family, you know, the little Batman retinue, and going about things in his own way. And there's a great example of a foil embossed cover. So there you go. Speaking of the foil embossed, I'm going to show you a couple more in a minute. So let's move off the Batmans and have a look at a couple of other bits, shall we? Okay, kind of moving. A few of these are Bat titles or Bat-related titles still, but I'm going to slip in a few examples of some non-Batman stuff just to kind of top the video up. And this next one I've got is not only is it a great example of foil embossment and how foil embossment was being used to market first issues, launches of new titles, but, well, let me show you, shall I? There you go. We've got Lobo #1, the first fragging issue. This is the first issue of Lobo's monthly title. Up until then, I think mostly was these kind of 4-5-part miniseries stuff. Lobo, if you're not aware, is a space biker, last of his kind, healing factor dude who is just super irreverent and juvenile and funny, and I really appreciated that humour at that time in my life. But what I particularly love about this one is not only is it a great example of foil embossment, you can see on his codpiece there, it's a big foil biker codpiece that he's got, but also the fact that the self-deprecating humour, aimed at themselves, at DC as a publishing company, with the speech bubble on the cover there saying, "I've got your cover enhancement right here," and it's a shot of his groin. And so I really appreciated the kind of self-deprecating shoot at themselves humour and that. And so, but yeah, it was a good title. It was fun enough. It certainly appealed to a 13-year-old Chris, because I love a good bit of immature, juvenile humour, definitely. And there's a great example of not only an issue 1 being marketed, a way to catch the eye of teenage comic book buyers like me to fork out our cash to pick up these first issues, but also just really loved the kind of the humour of that and the way, the kind of self-awareness of the humour of that. So there you go. But speaking of embossment, I've got a couple here that are not foil embossed, but just kind of like standard cover embossment. Here's Catwoman issue 1. Again, an example of them using these novelty, gimmicky comic book covers to market first issues and to make people interested in buying these new monthly runs. You can see, or maybe you can see if I just sort of shine the lamp over it, the way that her whip and her figure, her body is raised off the cover and in the kind of thicker cardboard of it all. I've become very self-conscious about running my finger over the embossment because of clearly the kind of overt sexualization of the Catwoman character there, which I'm sure, is perfectly fine, or is it? I don't know. Certainly when I was 13, I thought it was fine, and that's the point, isn't it? Is to market titles like this to young comic book readers, teenage comic book readers. You can see here it's happening at the time. Bane's involved as a character here. Catwoman, much more of an anti-hero figure at this point here, which she obviously then becomes increasingly more good, and to the point where she's now involved in with the Batman. So there's an example, and then I've got another example of an embossed cover. This is Robin issue 14. A bit later on, actually, in February 1995, I started to slowly stop buying monthly titles at this point and started picking up trade paperbacks. It was a lot easier to ask for, trade paperbacks as gifts for my birthday and at Christmas and get whole collections than buying them month in, month out. I think also at this point, as I was getting into sort of 15, 16, other interests started to occupy my mind than reading comics, But yeah, here's an example again. If I just sort of run the lamp over it, you can sort of see the Batman figure embossed, raised there on the card cover. So there's an example of some embossed comic book covers, although I don't know why they were marking issue 14. Again, I should have reread it, but I don't believe this is a particularly significant storyline. I really enjoyed the Robin comic books at this time period, actually. In fact, I've got a couple more to talk about in the next section. So while we're talking about Robin, let's move on and have a look at them, shall we? Yeah, so Robin, Timothy Drake, all the Timothy Drake stuff. And he had a number of mini-series that took place over that early 90s period. As he had what's largely referred to as Robin 1, Robin 2 and Robin 3, a trilogy of miniseries. In the first, where he kind of goes out and starts to get training as he has first become the Bat sidekick, and then as he moves on, he gets his kind of own little storylines to pursue. And the Robin 2 is both the Robin miniseries 2 and 3 that I'm about to show you are particularly interesting. But I love Robin 2, the titles of Robin 2, because these are this example of hologram covers. Look at that. If I just sort of move it back and forth. So we've got a classic Dick Grayson comic picture here. I think there's several of these, actually. I mean, I only have this one, but I think there's several of these. So where Tim Drake's Robin faces off against the Joker. Yeah, but let me bring it up. These don't catch the light on the camera quite as well as the holograms that were in the X-Men installment. But yeah, there you go. There's a Tim Drake. Sorry, not a Tim Drake, a Dick Grayson hologram on the front cover of issue 1. Then here's issue 2 with a kind of classic Chuck Dixon style Batman there. And then we've got a Joker, the antagonist of this particular miniseries. I really like that one with the sort of swirly, discombobulating pattern behind him. And then we've got issue 4 with a bat signal coming out. Yeah, so really love these. Although I must admit, I think if you take a look at installment 2, you'll see the X-Men Fatal Attraction storyline holograms, and I think they were of a better quality for sure. So yeah, there you go. But then let's move on to Robin 3. Now this is the one. This is mind-bending. I've only got the first 2 issues of the novelty titles. In fact, the rest of the miniseries, 3 through to issue 6, I've only got I've got issue 3, 4, 5, and 6. I've got just the standard off-the-shelf issue. So I obviously decided that I was not interested in the novelty versions, but here they are anyway. Lenticular 3D covers. Let me just move that better under the light there. So what you've got is this this kind of folded over. I don't know if you can see there. This sort of folded over comic book cover with a little pull here slowly tab at the bottom. And then if I do just that and follow the instructions and pull here slowly and pull it down, you can see Robin's cape flapping there in the wind as he stands at the top of this Gotham tower. And then eventually you get the flickering Robin title at the top there. I mean, as far as gimmicky covers go, that has got to be possibly in equal parts the best and worst example of a gimmick comic book cover. I really don't know what to say. It certainly doesn't add anything, you know, into like a foil or a chromium cover to mark a landmark title. I sort of kind of get, but a random gimmick like this is clearly just exists in order to be a random gimmick. I don't know. A great miniseries, though. I love this one. Let's have a look at the second one. Here's part 2. Cry of the Huntress. So shall I do it again? Yeah, let's do it again. Here you go. Let me just hold the top corner there. So here's Batman and the Huntress in a street brawl. Just everybody's just basically repeatedly rocking back and forth. Battling it out. And there you go, there's the Robin and Huntress logo flickering at the top. I mean, let's call a spade. What a pile of shite. What an absolute pile of shite. It's no wonder. I'm glad to see that in my comic book collection, that at this point in 1993, 13 years old, even I had the sense to go, nah, man. I'm just going to buy, from issue 3 onwards, I'm just going to buy the standard versions of these titles. Because that gimmick, I mean, it's not even, like the front cover, the artwork, it just looks crap, doesn't it? Yeah, really unimpressed with those ones. But there you go, just another example. That's what this series is all about. Another example of these kind of gimmick comic book covers being used to squeeze more cash out of suckers like me. What I will say, though, is those Tim Drake Robin miniseries from the early 90s are really good. I enjoyed them, and they're some of my all-time faves. I've got the trade paperback collection of number 1, and I read it all the time. Just great. The King Snake character. Lady Shiva is significant in that first installment. I love her. Huntress. And Tim Drake, I think, really brought something new and interesting to the Robin character. So there you go. But yeah, what a pile of shite. That novelty cover does not do a great DC character justice there. Okay, well, there's all kind of me Batman-y ones. I think let's just have a look at a couple of random ones that I just found to dig out the box. A couple of special features, extra value, a few extra DC ones for you. All right, let's have a quick look at them. Yeah, okay, a quick show and tell of a few more then here. So I found this one in the box. This is a more kind of classically foil, not foil embossed, but a more kind of classically foil one, foil title. I think there's a name for this. I'm not sure what it is, but with this kind of holographic foil pattern in the background there. This is the New Titans issue 100. So again, another example of them marking a sort of landmark point in the chronological release schedule there. This is also a famous issue because it's the one where Nightwing and Starfire very nearly marry, but the wedding gets interrupted by an evil Raven who has a little kind of like evil Psycho Raven fit and interrupts the wedding, and yeah, just wacky. A great example of kind of the New Titans sort of teenage melodrama-y kind of tone there. But yeah, Marv Wolfman, again, still writing the title at this point. So this is it. Will the Titans survive the final darkening till death do us part? So yeah, landmark issue, landmark storyline with this hologrammatic-y, foily thing. What's the word? Maybe this is a chromium one. I get all my different types muddled up, but interesting nonetheless. Speaking of foil embossment, here is issue 1 of The Ray, back in a blaze. He was a really interesting character at the time, but I've not seen much or heard much of him in recent years. But yeah, another example of the marking in issue 1. I've really not looked after this bad boy, have I? Look at the state of that. The state of the cover on that. But we've got this kind of foil embossed golden thing. Again, just as another example of the marketing in issue 1 to make it attractive and make people want to go and pick it up off the comic book shelves. But yeah, he was an interesting character, the Ray. He was in, I think he joined the Justice League around this time as well. Actually, now that I think about it, was the Ray... someone let me know in the comments below. There might be someone who knows the comic books. Was the Ray one of the... the big aliens that bit people in the back of the neck, and some people, like Hitman and Bloodlines, it was called. The Bloodlines kind of annuals from around this time. Was the Ray one of the Bloodlines heroes? Maybe he wasn't. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. I don't know. Someone let me know. But anyway. And then I've got a little bit... I've got the Trinity issues, the special issues. This was a big crossover that took place with all the kind of DC cosmic-y folk. So you had, oh, sorry, kicking me camera stand there. You had the Green Lanterns, the Legion, the Dark Stars, all involved. Just this kind of, and that's a more traditional kind of just foil embossed kind of cover there. Give it a little shady shine, a little bit of something to make it stand out as a special, as a special issue there. So yeah, there you go. Don't see or hear much of the Dark Stars nowadays either, do you? And there's issue 2 for you. So yeah, just a few bonus extras at the tail end of the video there for you to enjoy. Okay then, folks, I think I've probably spent long enough on that DC pile of show and tell, so let's move on to wrap the episode up, shall we? Right, well, there we go. Thanks for joining me, guys, for this little show and tell from my Batman and other DC titles from the early 90s. I hope you enjoyed that look. Some of them not quite as awesomely impressive, I think, as the Superman and X-Men stuff from part 1 and part 2 of this series, but still some interesting ones in there nonetheless. I was really, and there's definitely some storylines in there I'd recommend, like the Knightfall stuff and the Robin miniseries. I really particularly enjoyed them. I have forgotten what I've lined up for part 4. I can see the pile of books over there. I think it's more Marvel stuff next. I think it's Marvel. Yeah, I think I'm jumping over to a Marvel one next. So keep your eyes out for part 4. I am starting to run out of them, so part 4 is probably going to be the final installment of this series. But please do let me know in the comments below. Have you got a few foil titles? Maybe send me some pictures of some stuff that you've got in your collection. What's your favourite storyline from the time? Were you a sucker like me? And all these great questions to answer in the comments below. If you've enjoyed what I've done today, please do hit the like. If you're not already subscribed, then definitely subscribe so you don't miss part 4. And I'll catch you guys in the next one. Cheers, folks.